Welcome back to East Coast DNA. Today with us we have a touring bluesy jazz folk singer and ketchup connoisseur, Jon Hines.
How you guys doing?
Good. And
Hey,
it's spelled different than Hines, but you do have merch with the Hines logo, right? So that fits in there.
yeah, I thought it was, to be honest, something just sort of clicked one day. I was just looking at it and I was like, my last name's Hines, they have Hines 57, it's, why not create some sort of label with it?
Mm-hmm.
But, instead of ketchup, tomatoes or mustard or whatever it is, put a guitar in there.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
Right. So for people that don't know Jon, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're a Cape Bretoner, and what else do we know about you?
I'm a Cape Bretoner, blues musician. I've been playing and touring for quite some time. This always kind of seems a little braggy, I guess, but it's humble bragging, I guess, is what some people call it. But I got a couple sponsorships behind me: Godin Guitars, Black Mountains on picks, String Joy Guitar Strings, based out of Nashville. Toured internationally, performing in the International Blues Challenge down in Memphis, Tennessee. It's been last couple of years been kind of a whirlwind. I haven't always been a blues player. I've been kind of, what got me into music initially was probably more folk, but the last couple of years kind of really the blues kind of took hold and just hasn't let go. The
first time I saw you was at Steinhardt, and I got that strong blues vibe from you at that time, and that's what piqued my interest in you.
That's it was starting to catch hold then. Like that's really when it kind of really grabbed hold. But right before that, my first CD that I have, Wild Things Roam, it's definitely more of a folk CD, folk album. There's a couple blues tracks on it, but it's primarily folk and like storytelling kind of thing.
What year was that one released?
That would have been 2018.
All right, so 2017 is probably around the time that people would start noticing Jon Hines' name out there, because you were getting recognized by a few things that far back. So was it kind of hit the ground running thing, or were you playing with other people leading up to that, or just known in your area and had a word of mouth following, or something special in that era?
It's actually something I didn't really talk about a whole lot recently. I did in the past, but like leading up to the creating and writing and recording of Wild Things Roam, I kind of had a hiatus from music. I played for years and years, and when I used to live in Halifax, I would tour around a little bit. But after I moved back to Cape Breton in about 2012, I sort of took a hiatus from just doing anything. I didn't even pick up the guitar for probably 5 years. In 2017 is kind of when I started kind of ramping back up. That's like just touring around locally within the province. And that's kind of when I wrote and created Wild Things Roam and then recorded it through that year. I got connected with a talent agency based out of Toronto, the Feldman Agency. One of their artists was coming to the East Coast, and I did a couple shows with him in PEI and in Nova Scotia. And then later on, when I was getting ready to release Wild Things Roam, I opened for Stephen Page, the Bare Naked Ladies, in Port Hawkesbury. So that little bit of name recognition, as you say, like it's just sort of creating a little bit of a buzz with that stuff. But up until 2017, like I wasn't really doing anything. And then just like you said, as soon as you get that break from something, and then stuff just starts pouring out of you.
Yeah.
And you hit the ground running, and you just start creating, and you just start driving, and you want to do, a little bit of attention, you want a little bit more kind of thing. And eventually that kind of led into doing a little bit more blues stuff. In the show that we did with the artist that was from the West Coast that was represented in Toronto, we played in Halifax, and the East Coast Blues Society came out to our show because he was actually a blues artist. And that's the very first time that I even knew that there was a blues society. I didn't even know it was a thing. And they sort of took notice with some of the blues stuff that I was doing that day. And then it just sort of evolved and kind of growed from there.
Okay. And you mentioned sponsorships. Like, I knew Godin and had you. How do they start? Did you reach out to them? Did they reach out to you? And I'm interested in Stringjoy as well. I know I've had conversations with Blake Weiland in the past that is part of the behind the scenes at Stringjoy as well. So.
Okay. I haven't talked with Blake. The guy I've been talking to there, his name's Alex. For everything that I've gotten like that, I've reached out to everybody. It's just really been most companies, they have like an artist relationship program, I guess is what you call it. Some people call it endorsement, sponsorship, but whatever it is, it's a partnership of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
And the day and age that we live in, it's all about social media content. It's all about content, put videos up, and they all want that kind of stuff. And if you got a little bit of traction behind stuff that you post, and if you're a half decent player, these guys are pretty adamant about taking you on. Now everything that I have is like it's a non-exclusive kind of thing. So like I can just play whatever I want, but the products that I play, they just happen to kick ass too, right? So it's sort of a win-win.
Yeah, if you're going to affiliate with certain people, those are the right places to go, I think. So you picked well.
Well, it's for me, being associated with a Canadian guitar company is pretty rad, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's Gibson and Epiphone and stuff like that, but they're I don't know, American. It's just really nice being aligned with a Canadian company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're great.
Being a Canadian boy, right?
Yeah.
And speaking of that type of thing, being a Canadian boy, where you were talking about being back in Cape Breton since 2012, it's been a while now. You're also more recently working with the Cape Breton Music Industry Cooperative as well. I see your name floating around there.
I got elected as a board member last July. We're trying to do some stuff. We're mostly focused on kind of just getting some funding and stuff like that right now, just to sort of keep the lights on and stuff. Like Cape Breton Music, they don't get a whole lot of government funding, like not like the some of the other stations, right? So it's they're talking right now with like a COA and like Cape Breton Tourism and like different counties and stuff like that, like just to try and keep funding so that we can create programs like for Cape Breton artists that we can send them out abroad, get money for them, like so they can get in and record and tour and just, because it's Cape Breton's a pretty big tourist destination, but and part of why people come here is the music, it's the scenery, it's everything involved, right? So there's a lot of artists that are here that are export ready.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of getting funding for them to actually hit the road and hit the ground running.
Mm-hmm. Got a band originally from Cape Breton on the wall behind me there too. Actually, a Good Dear Good, Tim Hatcher from that area. Okay. So I'm really familiar with a lot of Cape Breton bands now, especially since Sydney hosted the Nova Scotia Music Awards there last year. There was a lot of the interviews that we did ended up being people that were from Cape Breton as well. So we're seeing a lot of that. And I was just telling Andrew when we were starting this call that the podcast just renewed our contributor membership to your organization there as well. So we do see the newsletters going through, and I personally was pushing those workshops that you guys were offering with the Department of Labor, the different ones that were offered there through the winter. Those were, I've taken some similar courses myself, so I'm a little biased because I liked them for myself. But when I saw that they were being offered to some of the artists through your organization, I pushed it out to quite a few people that I knew that were interested in that type of thing, doing a lot of the DIY. A lot of our guests on the show are independent, so any new tools that are out there available to them, especially something that's free or relatively cheap, that's always great to be able to promote. So I did want to make sure that I mentioned that you're involved with that organization, because it's great to have it. Like, we have Music Nova Scotia, but to your point, there's a lot going on in Cape Breton, and it's not purposely segregated, but it's geographically segregated. So it does have its own unique obstacles where you're a little bit further away than the rest of the province. And
right.
You had also mentioned when we chatted, speaking of being in Sydney, when we were chatting back then, you were getting ready to head off to Nashville. And you must have been there not too long ago, because I remember seeing some posts online of you traveling.
Right. It was Memphis, Tennessee.
Oh, okay, Tennessee.
Just to I'll touch on that in just a second. Just to backtrack to the courses that they're actually province wide. They're for everybody within Nova Scotia. It's not just a Cape Breton exclusive thing. So if you know anybody, musician, artist, whatever it is, like there's grant proposal writing courses that are pretty ideal. Like even if somebody's looking to start a small business or something, right? Like it's it doesn't just apply to musicians, but it's a pretty broad thing that they're offering. But the Memphis, Tennessee thing, that was the last week of January 2023. I went down to and competed in the International Blues Challenge. So there was 300 acts from all over the world that ended up going down. There was there's bands and solo acts from Italy, Australia, Germany, New York, Chicago, San Francisco. They're all over. There was Ontario has 4 different blues societies, so each society has their own solo act and band act that they all send down.
Cool.
It was wild. It was I mean, being in Memphis, you hear a lot about these people like Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee, Elvis, B.B. King, and they're bigger than life. They're almost like characters that you just hear in a story, like legend. Then all of a sudden you're standing over top of Elvis's grave, right? You're standing in Elvis's house. You're standing in Sun Studios. You're holding the microphone that Johnny Cash sang into, right? You're standing in B.B. King's. Even Robert Johnson, if you guys know much about blues, you go down, like we're standing on the crossroads where he sold his soul to the devil.
Awesome.
And you go an hour south, and there's his grave. It's in the middle of nowhere, Mississippi, in this little place called Little Zion Church. It was
surreal.
I mean, amazing.
Yeah.
it takes all those things in our worlds that feel like legends, and it makes them real, I guess, eh?
Well, that's exactly kind of. I mean, I wasn't a big Elvis fan, right? But I appreciated the man. But being in Graceland, being in his house, gives me a totally different appreciation for what he's done and what he's accomplished. It was just amazing. Being on Beale Street, like there's so many blues songs about Beale Street, right? And that's what all those guys, the Delta blues players, they would all come up to Memphis, and then they would play that circuit on Beale Street, and a lot of them from there, they went up to Chicago, and that's what ultimately ended up leading into Chess Records based out of Chicago. So like Muddy Waters came in from Mississippi, he played on Beale Street, then he took off up into Chicago. He played at Chess Records. Howlin' Wolf did the same thing. Willie Dixon, Coco Taylor, like
crazy. It's crazy. Just like every name is like, oh yeah. Like it would be an amazing experience having the opportunity to be able to do that on top of why you're there, right? But did you find that the trip gave you inspiration for new material then? Like, it sounds like you had a really engaged trip, so I'm thinking that would give you some new song inspiration.
100%. I did a lot of writing there. I'll just say the elephant in the room right now. I didn't win while I was down there. It was unfortunately as much as I wanted to, but somebody needs to lose, somebody needs to win. It's just the way that it is.
Yeah.
No. So I played for 3 days. I played our international showcase, which wasn't part of the festival, but then the festival competition that took place on Wednesday, Thursday, they were the quarterfinals, and I didn't advance to the semis. So after that, like we basically just had time to not have to focus competition mode. So you get to do the tourist stuff. You get to, write. You get to mingle. You get to network with people, and that's really what it's about. Like networking. There's buyers from all over the world. There's festival buyers from everywhere. So you shake hands. You make friendships. Follow up on them. Some of them will follow up, and others not so much. And but yeah, it's I guess the long way around to answer your question. Yes, I did a lot of writing while I was down
Yeah.
there.
It sounds like you didn't win the competition, but you won just by being there. The experience and the inspiration and everything else that came out of it. I'd call that a big win. Yeah.
Everybody kind of won from being down there, just because, I met a guy from Australia who ended up going on and winning the whole thing while he was down there. Him and I kind of hit it off, and we were just kind of talking. We became friends. And then he advanced to semifinals, and then all of a sudden we have someone to root for, and, not somebody that you're kind of connected with. And Frank Sultana was the guy's name. He's great. But no, you're absolutely right. Everybody that took place, whether you win, lose, or draw, it was a win for everybody. Just because you being there was kind of a big enough thing. Like, in order to get down there, for me, I had to win the Halifax round. So Halifax, East Coast Blues Society, they look after Atlantic Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody out of the provinces that wants to compete, they show up in Halifax on the day, and then they compete. And the same thing in Toronto. The Toronto Blues Society, they have like where they have more people, they have more of an elimination. So it'll be over like 3 days or something like that. But it's the same thing. Like, they have one band that's going to represent that society that's going to go down, or one solo duo act. And then all the buyers that are there know that that's why you're there, because you're representing your area.
Yeah.
So they're down there kind of scouting for talent and, making connections. And, if you're there, you're already kind of making a commitment that you want to advance onto another level, another stage.
For sure.
Like, there was festival buyers from the south of France that ended up coming out, and the whole purpose of why he was there was to get talent for his festival.
Yeah, that's odd. Just the exposure alone is you couldn't otherwise buy that, really. A social media post is great, and everyone does it, but everyone does it. To actually get in front of real people is it's a nice return after a few years of lockdowns, for sure. But it's hard to believe that a year ago we were still experiencing that stuff, because at this point now we're talking about things like you're already done that trip, you just did all of it. But it's nice to see artists like yourself having the opportunities to get the exposure in other markets, so that we're not just famous in our region. So
I'll tell you, just to add a little note, there's something odd about every place that you go to when you're touring. Like Newfoundland, for example, there's pineapple at Subway that you can put on the sandwiches there.
Oh, really?
Just to add a little. And in Memphis, in Tennessee, it was smoking is still allowed everywhere.
Oh yeah.
Every bar that you go to, there's a sign. This is America. Smoke them if you got them. And and people smoking, and it was just like, when was smoking banned here in Nova Scotia? It's been 2000.
It's been 20 years.
Yeah, it was just, and I'm pretty sure that's all across Canada too. If correct me if I'm wrong. There's no smoking allowed anywhere in Canada.
I don't think so.
Yeah, so it was odd being in a place where you can, nobody cares. Like, you could walk into a smoke-filled bar, and that's just normal.
Yeah, definitely haven't done that in a couple decades.
I didn't even comprehend that it could be a thing. But
yeah. So now that you're back and have some inspiration and new material that you're working on and everything, what's the big next steps for Jon in 2023? A lot of touring going into the warm weather that we got now.
There's a bit. Right now, I'm actually working on a work visa for Australia. So while I was south, my buddy Frank that ended up winning, he connected me with a promoter in Australia who runs an artist in residency program.
Awesome.
So I'm going to be looking at going over for the entire month of October and the end of September, and just doing an artist in residency at a resort that's right in the middle of the country. I'll get to see a little bit of the country. Like I'll probably fly into like Melbourne or Sydney, and then depending where I go, I'm going to go to the opposite city and just do a little bit of gigging for that last week of September. But for the whole month of October, I'm supposed to be at Uluru, which is it's about a 30-hour drive from both of those cities.
Okay.
Right to. I didn't realize Australia was that big, honestly. To be perfectly honest, yeah. It's so it's 30 hours from Melbourne to Uluru, and then it's 30 hours from there to Brisbane, which is on the west coast.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I'm working on a lot of new writing right now. I'm not sure when I'm going to be going back into the studio, but I'm doing some duo stuff with Joe Murphy right now. Him and I are actually talking about recording an album. Now it's all just in the beginning phases. We did a couple things together, and we have a couple festivals lined up that we're going to play together as a duo. We have Acoustic Roots coming up in Cape Breton, and there's a blues festival in northern New Brunswick that we're doing as a duo, and then little things here and there that we're kind of spreading out in between. And then hopefully, very hopefully, I'm hoping to get back to Memphis actually for next January.
That'd be great.
Yeah. And then if I do that, the plan is to spend another week and then go to Nashville the week after. I never been to Nashville, but I think it's like a 6-hour drive from Memphis.
Okay.
So like our trip that we did this time, it didn't really allow for like if we were going to shoot over for the day, we're driving 6 hours, spend maybe an hour, then you're 6 hours back, right? But if you're going to go, stay for a couple days. Maybe even go into Arkansas, because Memphis is actually right on the border of Arkansas, and then Mississippi is like the southern part of the city. So if you cross the bridge, you can go into Arkansas. If you go 20 minutes south, you're in Mississippi. It's right on the border of those two states.
Yeah. That'd be a good trip.
Yeah.
And the song we're playing out with is actually you with Joe Murphy. Can't Take It With You. And you have a little story about a harmonica, I hear.
Yeah, so Joe's harmonica that he's playing on this thing, it looks like it's right out of like a cartoon, like right out of like The Little Mermaid or something. And I mean, I say that because that's immediately what I thought of when I seen it the very first time. It's a harmonica that has, it looks like there's 7 French horns hanging out the front of it, and they're all kind of spaced out and like on an angle. They come out, then they go up, and then they curve back out. He calls it his horny harp. He's Joe has a way with words. He's but Joe's great. Joe's been in the blues scene for a very long time. He learned how to play harmonica first in San Francisco. He toured with John Lee Hooker down around Louisiana. He used to play Dutch Mason back when Dutchy was playing around here. And actually, since talking about Dutch Mason there's the Blues Hall of Fame is in Memphis, because that whole area, Mississippi, Clarksdale, in Memphis, that's the birthplace of the blues. Just like we have in Cape Breton here, we have Celtic music is our local music, right? It's blues there. Blues is their local thing. Everywhere you go, it's blues. There's signs everywhere, it's Elvis, but they have the Blues Hall of Fame there, and they have bricks laid out on the sidewalk for influential people in the blues. B.B. King has a brick there. Howlin' Wolf has a brick, and Dutch Mason has a brick, and it's called Dutch Mason, Prime Minister of the Blues.
Oh, really?
Awesome.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And it's actually right by the Civil Rights Museum where the Martin Luther King Memorial is.
Oh, awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, it's just there's a park separating the two.
Perfect. That's amazing.
Insane amount of history in a smaller, like condensed area, not smaller, but condensed as far as like the size of the two countries that we have here side by side. Like it's crazy. There's so much history in that one area well, it's a specific genre, but just music in general in that area. It's crazy how far back it goes.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually even non-musical history, like Martin Luther King was assassinated in that city.
Yeah.
His memorial is there. The Civil Rights Museum is there. The suffrage movement took place in that city. There's a monument for that right on the boardwalk, which is the women that marched for the right to vote.
Mm-hmm.
That took place in Memphis. You're right. The city's actually not that big. It's probably, I mean, as far as the city goes, it's a city, but comparing it to a city here in Canada, it would be Halifax. It's the size of Halifax.
Mm-hmm.
And you wouldn't think that, right? Like it's, especially hearing, from
the history. Yeah.
A lot of the history, the people that were there, they're kind of bigger than life people.
Yeah.
That you're here.
Do you have any ECMA plans coming up?
Not this year. No, I wasn't able to get a showcase, but I'm going to be on the road that weekend heading elsewhere.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I have a couple friends that have showcases, and I have a couple folks that are going to be doing no cases.
Yes.
Like they're going to be organizing no cases. Like they're actually sponsored by ECMAs, but they're quote unquote unofficial no cases.
I will be at one of those for the majority of it. So we'll be talking about it on the podcast, getting closer to or shortly after or during.
I don't remember the name of the venue, but I wonder, does it happen to have Steve McIntyre organizing it? It does?
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely.
Well,
he's a great guy. Friend of the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, there will be some great names coming for anyone that's picking up on that from this episode. There will be some great names coming to our content in the month of May for sure as a result of that. Yeah. And for you yourself then, John, for anyone that wants to follow as you move forward throughout the year and potentially release some of that new material, should they follow you at anywhere particular online through your main website, or you have a preferred social media platform?
So my handle for everything is the same. It's just jonhinesmusic.com. Well, that's my website, but Jon Hines Music is my handle for everything. It's YouTube, Facebook, not Spotify or Tidal or anything like that. Like you'd just have to look up Jon Hines or whatever. But, yeah, and linktree.com/Jon Hines Music will take you to everything. That'll have
perfect.
My Facebook, everything, tour dates, everything's on there.
Awesome.
Yeah, we'll throw that in the show notes there.
Yeah, we'll put
your main website.
We'll put your link tree in the show notes along with our link tree. And we're going to play out with Can't Take It With You featuring Joe Murphy and his horny harmonica. Thanks for coming on then, John, and we'll hopefully chat again soon.
Appreciate it, you guys.
Okay, thanks. John.
Left my soul out on the highway. Now I'm losing sleep. Sun shining bright, and the wind does its sweep across the land. The clouds roll by, not saying slow. I can't take it with me, yeah, when I go home. Left my head back on the East Coast. Distant memory of that way it goes. When it comes my time, I'm gonna slip away into that night with my boots on. Some clouds roll by nice and slow. I can't take it with me, yeah, when I go. Left my heart out at sea. No Captain Ahab's got nothing on me. And if it takes my life, oh, I'm gonna work this line and make it right. And I'm sailing, so clouds roll by nice and slow. I can't take it with me, yeah, when I go.